Hey, good afternoon, and welcome back to the Low Def Media Podcast channel. This is Mike, and AKA Mr. Opinion Head, and thank you for taking the time to be part of the show to enjoy the podcast. A couple quick things before we get too far into it. Let's talk about the setup, because again, this is something that I think there are some of you out there who might benefit from this. If you are new to the space. All right, so very quickly, today I'm using my Fujifilm X-A5, a 1080p 30 frame per second camera. It is 4K capable, but only shoots at 15 frames per second in that mode. And so that's really not usable. So you flip it down to 1080, 30 frames a second, very nice mirrorless image. And we'll see how well that holds up during the duration of today's podcast. I've got that paired with my FDuce SL40 dynamic microphone. And that's about it. Using Filmora over here to my left, your right, to record the audio, and then I'll pair it with the video after I'm done. That is a very inexpensive software package. And so I highly recommend it. Much cheaper than going the route of Premiere Pro, or there's another one, FX or something like that. Let's see, there's Premiere Pro, Adobe. Adobe has their own Premiere Pro, and it's Final Cut Pro. That's the one that Apple has. And that's the step up from iMovie. Now, I'm a big fan of iMovie. It's free, comes with your Apple devices. It's for someone like me who doesn't do a whole lot of video. I have a YouTube channel, but I'm not doing intricate stuff. And so it works great and it's free. Now, I am going to make a slight change to the image here because it does look just a tad dark. So let's lighten it up just a little bit. There we go. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, I have found, I guess, joy and pleasure, joy, some gratification about or jotting down things that I come in contact with or things that I observe during the week and then sharing them with you. And then I want to get your feedback. I think that's the one thing that's really been missing recently is getting your feedback on the things that we talk about. Are you seeing these things as well? What do you think about these things? Because again, this is a podcast where my dog does not agree with the rain, and it is currently raining. So this is a podcast that I really do ask for feedback. I want this to be dialogue. All right. So, hey, take a couple minutes, type something out, send it to me. Really appreciate it. Okay, so what's the first thing that I put down? Quality of political candidates. Now, this is something that I have mentioned here on the channel in the past, and I think it bears repeating that I don't want to say embarrassed, but I can definitely tell you that I'm not happy with the quality of political candidates that we get here in America. And you need to look no further than the president. Okay, now it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter because you look at that president, you look at Joe Biden, he is old. He bumbles, he stumbles, he can't get his own thought out. Everything's got to be scripted. And the things that they write, he will say, it's kind of like Anchorman. If it's on the teleprompter, he's going to say it, even if it's directions as to what to do after he's done speaking. And so you've got to admit, even if you're a Democrat, that this is not the best that we can do here in America. Now, you look at his predecessor, Donald Trump. If you're a Republican, you've got to admit that is in no way the best we can do as Americans when it comes to presidential candidates. See, what happens, in my opinion, is you have the primaries, and that's where you've got each political party, and they're trying to figure out who's going to be their candidate, okay? So they go through and they start saying, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do. But what happens is they get derailed, and they start saying bad things about each other, even though they're from the same party. The objective should be to get someone from your party on the ticket, the strongest possible candidate, so that you can beat the other political party. Should be the goal. But what they do is they end up beating the crap out of each other so that by the time it comes to the election, you've got a beat up candidate. That's the best thing. The best thing you say is they're a beat up candidate because they made it. But in the process, you have torn down your political party, and now everyone's disenfranchised about what you represent or what you're going to do because all you did was tear everybody else down and you're the last one standing. And so I don't like it. We lose so many quality potential candidates because of the way the system is run. You don't just go after someone because of their political views, which is the way I think it should be done. If someone's running for any office, you look at their record. What are they going to do? What's your platform? What do you hope to do while you're in office? I don't need to drudge up all this other stuff to try and break you down as a person. I want to know what you're going to do as a politician. Because think about it. Everybody's got something that you don't want to come out. And so if you're someone who's very concerned about what might come out, then you don't run. And if you have loved ones who you don't want to see scrutinized under a microscope, then you don't run because you don't want that to happen. And so we lose out on a potential plethora of political candidates because of the way the system is set up. I've seen a number of great candidates run for an office only to get beat up in the primaries and have something pop up, something the other party brings up that is so inconsequential and from so far back, but then it's just, okay, well, now there it is. You found that, and now I quit. I give up because now that has become public, and rather than fight you on it, I'm just going to walk away. And that's really all they want. The other party just wants you to walk away. That they're not looking for anything else other than that. So the quality of political candidates that we have is depressing, and it's very sad. I need to know from you, have you ever seen a political candidate that you were on fire about that you thought would just do a great job? And I'll throw one out there. Colin Powell. I listened to his audiobook back when he was, I think, Secretary of State. And he said he would never run for an elected office because of how they scrutinize not just the person, the politician, but the family. And he didn't want to do that to his wife. And so that is a huge loss for us as Americans because that's someone that I think would have upheld a certain core value as a president or a vice president and decided he didn't even want to run. And so that's very sad. So is there anyone that you have seen or that you've wanted to run that didn't, or that did start the process only to give up before actually making it to the finish line and becoming a candidate? So let me know on that one. The next thing that I've got here is, this might be just a little bit silly, but the other day I'm walking from work to a nearby restaurant during lunch. All right, so as I'm walking, I hear a song. It's blaring from a car. And I'm thinking to myself, I know that song. Now, it's an older song, but I know it. I've heard it. I've retained it. And it got me thinking, how much stuff is stored up here? When you hear a certain song and you remember the words, when you watch a movie and you're like, oh, I remember what happened, or I know that line. How much data is stored in our brain? And why is it some of that data we're able to recall, but it's of little or no value? It's just for kicks and giggles. But when we really need something, a phone number, a name, an address, we can't remember that for anything. And it's there. It's locked away somewhere in here. But all the silly stuff always rises to the top. And then all the stuff I really want to remember, I can't, and it's so frustrating. So I want to know from you, is that something that you think about, just how much is stored up here and why some of it you can recall and some of it you can't? I did hear, I think it was a quote from Einstein, when someone asked him about being a genius, what does it mean? And I think he said that in order to be a genius, that everyone has the potential to be a genius. It's just being able to recall the right information at the right time. Because we've all been exposed to a lot of things. If you think back to high school, all of the stuff that you were taught in school, if you could recall all of it just whenever you needed to, on demand, if you could do that, you would be considered a genius. If someone asked you, hey, what date did this occur, or what country, or what place, if you could do that, because all the 4 years of high school, math, science, English, social studies, all these different topics, if you could not just retain it, but recall it when you needed it, that would be genius status. So I'm always amazed at how much we retain, but I'm always confused by why it's so hard to recall it when you need it. That's the trick. All right, moving on to the next topic. We are just moving right along. Oh, hey, you know what? Speaking of walking to get something to eat, on the same day that I had this epiphany about brain memory and the amount of data that we have stored up there, something happened at the subway. It's kind of silly. I know some of these things are kind of silly, but they're everyday things that you observe. All right, so I go to Subway, and my plan is to get a meatball sub. Okay, no harm in that. Meatball sub. Done it 100 times. So I walk in to Subway, and there's a lady behind the counter. Never seen her there before. Looks like a new employee. She's just standing behind the counter, and she looks at me. Then she looks down the counter at what I think is her manager. Looks at me. Looks at her manager. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, she's new. She's trying to get some guidance. What do I do here? And so I'm waiting, and she looks at me and she goes, I'll be with you in just a minute. Just I'm checking to make sure I can get you started. I'm like, all right, no worries. And then she looks at me and she goes, do you know what kind of bread you want? I said, sure. I want Italian herbs and cheese, 6-inch. Okay. She looks, she gets a high sign. She starts cutting the bread. You know how they do. They slice it and they flatten it out. Well, this is where things got interesting, because she takes her spoon, puts it in the meatball dish, the container, and she scoops out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 meatballs for a 6-inch sub. I don't know. I don't normally get a foot long, but I think that's how many you would put on a foot long sandwich. And so I'm looking and I'm like, I'm not going to tell her, because I want the extra meatball. So I'm not going to tell her it's wrong. But it got me thinking. I'm looking around the store. Obviously she's new. All right. So she's still learning how to make all these sandwiches. And there's a lot of sandwiches at Subway, and I'm sure it's very detailed, very intricate. So she obviously made a mistake, but I'm looking, new person. Then I look down the counter at the register, new person being trained. I look outside, there's a new person washing the window. And so I'm looking at all this new labor, and it gets me thinking, how is it that this particular Subway has been able to corral so many new employees when some of the other restaurants that I go to have had to reduce their hours or services because they can't get enough people? And so this particular Subway is, I don't want to say downtown, but it's in a business center. There's hotels and office space. And so it's got a lot of people during the day, 9 to 5. But then after that, I would assume that the amount of people there dissipates quickly because everybody goes home. And so it got me thinking, how is it that they can get all this labor but other restaurants can't. I hear it all the time that, hey, we don't have enough people. It's going to take longer to get your food, or the dining room isn't open because we're running minimum staff. And so my stupid computer timed out again. Hold on. My audio is probably not recording. You know what I need to do? What I need to do is probably, when I'm recording my podcast, is set the timeout, the screensaver. Just set that for off, and then this wouldn't happen. The same thing happens with my Blue Yeti. Blue Yeti needs power from the computer in order to work, and so if the computer goes to standby mode, it doesn't work. So yeah, I apologize for that. But hey, are you experiencing the same thing in where you live, in your cities, where there's a labor shortage in the fast food industry, and the services that you're used to getting have been scaled back because they don't have enough labor? Let me know, because I think that's a great topic to talk about, because I understand that the pandemic hit the restaurant industry pretty hard. But now that we're coming out of that, we should see that labor increase because people should be looking to get back to work. But I haven't seen that increase. All I see are help wanted signs, and they're throwing $15 to $20 an hour at fast food employees, new hires, to get them in the store. Where I can remember not too long ago, Congress was saying they did not want to create a $15 minimum wage because they thought it would literally break companies trying to pay that much for employees. But now it seems that's what you have to do in order to get anybody to work at your store. So let me know your thoughts. I'd appreciate that. And let's move on. Okay, here's a really good topic. And I think this is the last actual topic for today's conversation. We are at 17 minutes, so trying to keep it brief. Always brief here on Low Def Media. All right, so I saw this thing, and I know it was meant to be, I don't want to say silly, but it was a joke that was underhandedly serious. Okay, he was talking about a political figure, either someone in the Senate or the House, was going to send Dianne Pelosi $601 through a Venmo or some kind of Cash App, so that she would then be targeted by the IRS for an audit. Not audit, but give them access to look at her finances. Because this particular political person, I don't know her name, believes that Dianne Pelosi is making a ton of money off of her position in the House of Representatives. And I can almost guarantee that is correct. And it's not just her. It's probably 90% of all the representatives and senators that are currently in office. To verify that or validate that theory, go read a book by, his name is Peter Schweizer, and it's called Throw Them All Out. And I kind of read through that book some years ago, but the basic premise is how someone gets into political office, the House or the Senate, and let's say they're making $200,000 a year before coming into office. Now, you know that there is a specific salary for senators and representatives, and it's a pretty high number. It's over $150,000 a year for those positions. One of them's higher than the other, can't remember. But so let's just say $200,000, we'll cut the difference between the two, and we'll say $200,000. So if you do your 2 years or 4 years, depending on which you are, I think it's 2 and 6. It's, if you're in the House, it's a shorter time, and if you're a senator, it's a longer time, something like that. You're not going to become a millionaire, is the point, serving one term. However, if you look at a number of Congress people, because of what they know when it comes to laws and what's going to be allowed to happen and not allowed to happen inside the U.S., especially when it comes to business, they can align themselves in such a way that they can profit through the stock market on laws. Okay. So when I live in Georgia, the last election that we had, I think his name is Perdue and Loeffler, Kelly Loeffler, and what is that guy's name? It's something Perdue. And both of them were just dragged over the coals about how much money they made because of the pandemic. Because if you were in Congress, you knew what the government was going to do in order to help combat COVID. And so the pandemic. And so what happened is they knew that certain companies were going to get contracts. They knew that hand sanitizer was going to go through the roof. They knew that surgical gloves were going to go, masks, all these things, all the things that resulted because of the pandemic, they knew was going to, I mean, they didn't know exactly how it was or who was going to benefit, but they knew they have pretty good indicators what markets were going to skyrocket. And so they were able to profit from it, made lots of money. Okay. And that prevented those two from being reelected here in Georgia. Once that information got out that they profited because of the pandemic, they were not reelected. And if you look at who's currently in office, you can't tell me that they did not profit the same way. Look at Dianne Pelosi. Does she live the lifestyle of someone who is a public servant? No. She's off in Italy at somebody's villa. There were pictures of that not too long ago. And so she's not the only one. I would say, like I said, 90% of all the people in Congress profit similarly to her and others before her and all that. So does that bother you? Do you see that and say, oh no, that's unacceptable. I can't stand for that. And if you found out that your elected official was doing the same thing, would you vote them back in? Or would you look at what they've done for you in your state, in your county or city, and how their political views have helped you, let's say, prosper, bring down gas prices, help with the economy, whatever it is that is assisted you where you live? Maybe it's medical. Maybe they fought to lower insurance costs and prescription costs, and you're like, hey, that's all I cared about. I'm going to vote them back in. I don't care what else they're doing. Let me know, because I think that's a very interesting topic. Here in Georgia, when it comes to a political race, you've got Herschel Walker, famous Georgia Bulldog football player, running for office. He wants to be in the Senate, I believe. And politically, no idea where he stands on a majority of issues. I know that he's conservative. I know that there are some things he said in his commercials, things that he would do if he were elected. But most of the time, what you end up seeing are snippets of him saying something, and then that statement is being debunked and shown as, not true. And so they're going after the person and not after the politics. So this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. But if you found out that, hey, there's some merit to some of that, let's say the political figure that you've got, your elected official, something came out and you said, wow, I didn't know that person was involved in that. Would it change your opinion enough to change your vote? And if not, what would it take to change your vote? I think that's very important. I think that especially now that the election is coming around, it'll be very interesting to see how Democrats react to the way that Joe Biden has been doing the job of president, how he, his mannerism, all the stuff that goes into him doing the job of being president. And then also the vice president, who you very rarely see. And when you do, I've seen some video snippets and it's not flattering. I don't think she's doing a whole lot as the role of vice president to really further the Democratic Party. I don't know. You just don't see it a lot. So let me know, what would it take to change your vote? And are you looking for someone else to run? Is there someone you're looking for to be on the ticket, aside from the couple names that we already know, the ones that we've already seen, being touted as, they're running for president in the next election? So, hey, those are the topics for today. But hey, I want to throw this little teaser out. We're going to be starting a third channel. Actually, it's going to be Low Def Media. We've already got Mr. Opinion Head. We're going to start doing a movie/TV, show review. My wife and I are going to sit down and we're going to talk about movies that we go see, TV shows that we watch, whether it's a movie, recurring series, because we do watch a fair amount of television and our opinions do kind of differ. And so I think that will be interesting to you, the listening/viewing audience. And then the third channel, let me know your thoughts on this. I want to start discussing finding the joy in doing. Because as what I consider to be middle-aged man, when I go out and I go, let's say for a run this morning, ran 5 miles. Now, I didn't run the fastest 5 miles ever. I was getting passed by people out there on the trail. I didn't run the farthest. There are people who run way farther than I do. But in my mind, I'm trying to constantly focus on finding the joy in doing. I got out. I left the house. I did something that was challenging. I did something that will benefit me and my health and my mental state. And so find the joy in doing and don't always look at the end result or a time or a distance. Did you win? Did you lose? So that's going to be the crux of that third channel. Find the joy in doing. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. Hit me up in the comments, send an email. Would love to know your thoughts on that. But hey, hopefully I wasn't too close to that microphone. Might have to hit that volume. That is Mr. Opinion Head here today on the Low Def Media podcast channel. Thank you so much for taking the time. Really hope you become a subscriber. And if you're watching this on YouTube, do me a favor, become a subscriber and hit the little bell so you know when the next installment comes out and you can be one of the first ones to watch. I'm Mike, Mr. Opinion Head, Low Def Media. See you in the next one.